Hello and welcome to NDTV Profit. You're watching this special with us. The industry body, Confederation of Indian Industry, has set out a 14-point agenda for economic transformation. We have with us, joining us, Sanjiv Puri, who is the chairman of ITC and also the president of the industry body CII. Mr. Puri, thank you very much for joining us on NDTV Profit. Sir, let me begin with your assessment of the economy at this point in time. It's a time when the new government has taken charge. There is an agenda which will be set out in the next month or so when the new budget comes in. How do you, assess the current economic and macroeconomic situation as we speak?
So I think the Indian economy is very clearly in good shape, and the as I say, the proof of the pudding is in eating it. So we've seen the GDP numbers for last year, 8.2%, ahead of many estimates that came, and more so, it is remarkable that we achieved 8.2 when globally the numbers are not very buoyant. So all in all, I think we are in very good shape. The macros are good. I think the investment climate is good. Private capex is looking up, and all this has happened because of a lot of good policy interventions that have happened for several years, and we are seeing the impact of this come through. And the impact of investments in public infrastructure, the digital infrastructure, the physical infrastructure is tremendous. Both are improving the competitiveness of the economy, I think, and also the quality of life for everybody. Travel has become so much easier. All that is also, having the multiplier impact of greater connectivity, and therefore we're also seeing the benefits of that translating into, for example, the mobility and transportation and the tourism industry. So if you look at air travel, you look at rail travel, you look at how the tourism sectors are doing. So all these are in positive territory. So many positives in the economy, and overall very good position.
Sir, as an industry leader who has ears to the ground, two key things are to watch out for the entire industry. One is the rainfall, and the second one is the inflation trajectory. And with the inflation trajectory is also linked the interest rate cycle which is there. How do you assess these two macroeconomic variables which are there as per you? Because that's something which would be driving consumption and growth going forward.
No, they're very valid points. So what we understand from the forecast available, the monsoons are going to be better, and therefore we believe that the agri sector should perform better this year. And we've also seen when the agri sector performs better, the food inflation is is moderated. In fact, you know that in CPI, the core CPI is at around 3%. What is a little sticky still is the food inflation, and that we believe could moderate because of better monsoons. And CII's own expectation is inflation around 4.5%. And with that, we believe that in the second half of the year, we could start seeing easing of interest rates. So all in all, this will be positive for the economy.
Mm-hmm. Sir, let me come to the 14-point agenda that you have recommended. The top on that is the global value chain, which you spoke about. Can you take us through what exactly are the policies that you're looking forward as far as the global value chain that we are trying to create?
So, there are many transitions happening in the world. So two important ones are supply chain diversification and energy transition. And these are areas where India has tremendous opportunity to participate in. 70% of the global trade is through global value chains. And the idea is because the supply chain diversification is being thought about, and because energy transition is creating new impetus. So both of these are opportunities for us to participate in global value chains. And what is it that is required to do that? Very clearly, I would say, let me start by saying that fair bit has already happened. But there are the next steps that need to be taken to improve the competitiveness of the economy. Some of these are to do with certain factor reforms in the economy with land, labor, agriculture, power, and so on and so forth. It is also the journey on, cost of ease of doing business, where, tremendous progress has been made in the past. But of course, there are newer areas that can be addressed. So that journey should continue. FTAs is important for integrating into global value chains. And we've made some progress in the past. And there are some FTAs that are under discussion. So industry would welcome these being signed as soon as possible. I think one area that is also important for global value chains is the aspect of sustainability and energy transition. So that's the area that it's important that there are sectoral roadmaps and also cognized for the social aspects of the transition. And the funding, it requires a lot of funds. So access to green funds is another important area that needs to be looked at. And funds have to come from public, private, multilateral institutions. So to unlock private capital, I think the right incentives and disincentives in the form of carbon markets, which is also underway, are extremely useful. I also believe that there are some progressive policies that have been announced by the center, like the open access policy. But in the last mile, in some states, there are challenges. So removing the friction at the last mile will also create economic viability, and therefore there will be an unlock. There are certain areas where technology is nascent or being developed. So once these are developed and become economically viable, I think private capital will go there. And I think I'd like to compliment the government for being very proactive in setting up, the missions behind creating these solutions. Mm-hmm. So these are some of the very important areas. And of course, I think we must also look at the rural sector in particular. That's an area where we would recommend that the private capex also is scaled up.
Sir, a couple of things here. One, you spoke about rural sector. We saw some signs of rural distress in the last couple of quarters. As a company and as an industry leader who has a very large exposure to agri side, how do you see this current state of the rural consumption, and are you seeing some kind of reversal of that status quo which was there for last couple of quarters, and consumption coming back in some way?
We are, from the commentary that's come from various companies after the end of the last quarter results, there are reports of green shoots of consumption increasing. There are certainly reports of that. And given the favorable conditions of monsoon and therefore inflation and interest rate, we do believe that consumption will improve further. I think the impact of all the reforms, public capex, and the fact that we are saying that there could be a greater accent towards rural in public capex, so that will provide further impetus to the rural economy. In addition to that, I think the investments in agriculture, and there are some interesting pieces that are already embedded in the vote on accounts on the integrated approach to certain sections of the agriculture, the focus on FPOs, digitalization and technology, that will provide boost to the agriculture areas and farm incomes. And the third aspect is also the facet of empowering, particularly rural youth with the right skills, education, right healthcare facilities, so that they can also partake in the opportunities that are there in the economy and develop the right kind of skills, which the industry also requires for growth and scale up. So these are essentially essentially what I'm saying is that we are expecting it to improve, and we can provide further impetus to it with some of these areas that I've spoken about.
As part of your recommendation, you have also suggested a couple of institutional reforms. Land being one of them. There's a lot of some of the states have been proactive in undertaking that. But what exactly are you trying to get? Because land is being a state subject and not a center subject, and so it requires some bit of push or nudge from the center to undertake those kind of reforms. You are suggesting, if I'm not wrong, reduction in stamp duty on land and maybe an online integrated land authority.
Yes.
How does that work
Yes.
for the industry and for the growth?
So, once the factor costs get optimized, so it naturally makes the industry more competitive. And with online records and the guaranteed titling system that we have recommended, it also brings in efficiency and speed of procuring land when the investment is to be done.
Okay.
So it reduces cost of doing business and also ease of doing business.
And you think most of the states would be on board with this kind of thing? Because there has been an attempt to digitize land records and titling for the last couple of years. Many states have been able to do partially, but not been able to completely get it done. But do you think that there can be a pace attached to this kind of reform?
Yeah, we would expect that this would be followed through, and the reason that is in fact exactly the reason why we are suggesting an institutional mechanism which is focused on this activity to provide impetus to it. It has happened, you are absolutely right, to some measure in various parts of the country, but at a pan-India basis, on an accelerated pace. That's why we are suggesting a kind of an institutional mechanism to pursue that.
The government has already passed some of the labor bills and acts have been passed, but notification is still pending. Is the industry body asking for a faster implementation of those acts or notifications on a state level? Because again, labor is a state subject here.
Yeah, so that's why we have suggested, we need to create the mechanism to get consensus on some of these areas like you mentioned, so that, the labor codes, etc., that the government has already drafted can get notified. Absolutely.
Sir, you broadly spoke about the energy transition that we are looking at, but at the same time, you're also looking at institutional reforms on the power side. Can you elaborate a little bit on what kind of reforms are you looking at from the power side, and where does the center come into play in this?
No, see, there are areas, all these set of reforms. There are some have touch points in the center and state. That's why we are saying the institutional mechanism to build the consensus. So build the consensus, maybe provide the where required and where appropriate some resources, some incentives to do that. So in the power sector, there are issues over cost, like there is some cross subsidization that happens. There are also larger issues about the fiscal stability of some of in the power sector. There are also issues of the transition in the power sector. If we are going to go the EV method, then what kind of grids are required. There is also this piece about energy transition. So many facets to this whole area of the power sector.
I just want to touch upon two more subjects. The one being increase in capex. What you are suggesting is that the capex should be increased to nearly 25% by 25% of the revised budget estimate. It's currently 16%, which is there. Do you think that there is enough elbow room for the finance minister when she presents the budget to increase the capex outlay?
See, it is right now sitting at 16.8%. So we are suggesting that this be taken up to 25. And there is also additional resources that have come in this year. So part of that can be deployed and in this area.
And the entire argument which many are making about that there may be some kind of welfare economics that may be tied into the budget, given the fact that now you have coalition governments, partners, part of the NDA, part of the government now, and also the fact that the elections have given out a verdict which looks at a little bit of rural distress. So maybe welfare economics is something which may be one of the legs of the budget which will continue as it is.
So let me say that the requirements, immediate requirements, the government has been taking proactive measures in the past also, through increase in Manrega, through the direct benefit transfers and other such measures. Of course, those need to be provided for as deemed appropriate. But what is most important is to create a virtuous cycle so that the growth and progress in the economy is, and rural included in that, is through a sustainable basis. And the only way to do that, I think, is an investment approach of investment-led inclusive growth. That's a model that's been followed in the past, and that's why let's remember, that's the reason why in India we are at a much stronger wicket. When we look at some other parts of the world where other methods were deployed, in fact, that has created a lot of stress in the economies at this point of time. And in many cases, in many areas where there has been shrinkage of consumption, just coming back to pre-COVID levels and so on and so forth, India is on a much stronger wicket. We are on a growth path. We're saying we need faster growth, and absolutely that's the way to go, because that's the potential to India. That's the potential of India. Why this consumption is on stress, we must also understand. It's largely on account of external factors, the geopolitical crisis, the disruption in supply chains, and the climate emergency led to inflation, and cost of everything has gone up. So that has its impact, but then it is and this stress has come on the back of the COVID years. But it's all, India has been very resilient, has recovered fast. Many sectors have recovered fast. Some sectors have not completely recovered, but they're all on the right direction. And I think so this path of inclusive investment-led growth is the way to go, and we'll be on a more sustainable path with passage of time. And in the near term, there are many positives, as we discussed earlier, that will also help improve consumption.
Sir, one of the major reforms that you're looking at is the direct tax reforms, which is there. You're looking at some of the changes to the TDS provisions, pruning down of some of the rates which are there, much more, rationalization of capital gains. Now, that's very a touchy subject for the markets and for some of the, for the corporates there. Can you take us to the rationale for this? And do you think that there is enough, buoyancy in tax for the finance minister to take this kind of steps?
No, we are not. You see, these two suggestions do not, are more to do with the ease of doing business and simplification, instead of having, multiple rates and different treatment of capital gains for different treatments. These are not suggestions that are supposed to that they are not seeking any reduction in tax rates. It's more around looking at simplifications so that ease of doing business improves. It's more around that principle.
Also, you are seeking a status of infra for hospitality, both from the central point of view and from a state. Tourism and hospitality should be considered as an infrastructure. I know the industry has been asking this for many years now. Do you think that it should come in now, given that tourism is taking off in a big way and hospitality is one of the sectors where we see the maximum capex coming in from in some form?
Absolutely. This is also the sector that has got huge economic multipliers. It creates a lot of micro enterprises, self-employment. The impact on the economy is tremendous. and it's a great opportunity. Right now we are seeing a lot of buoyancy in domestic tourism, and with better connectivity, investments happening, there's a lot more opportunity in this space. And you know, our global tourism is not yet buoyant. So that's the opportunity to build up. We believe that as the global economy normalizes, improves, the global tourism will also pick up. And that's a tremendous opportunity for us. G20, I am sure, has whet the appetite of the world to see what India has to offer, because of the manner in which, very interesting way that G20 was conducted, that it was taken to all parts of the country. All parts of the country were showcased. So this is a time when we should provide further impetus to the tourism sector. Industry and government can work collaboratively to develop a certain number of centers of excellence as has been envisioned. And a good time also to launch a campaign around Incredible India to showcase to the world what all India has to offer.
Sir, my final question to you is about private capex. That's something which has been, very slow to start. We've seen some kind of green shoots, but what is your assessment? Where is that private capex coming in initially, and will it take off? And the space which the public capex maybe the void which may come in the next few years from public capex, will it be able to cover that void?
So look, first of all, let me say that it is not just green shoots. Private capex is on a firmer footing. It stands at 23.8% of the gross fixed capital. The private capex is 23.8% of GDP. It is higher than the pre-COVID number, and the trajectory is in the right direction. So it should only go forward. And if you look at the gross fixed capital in the economy, the share of private investment has not actually reduced. The share is fairly consistent with what it has been historically. So in a way, we are seeing that private capex is keeping pace. Let's remember that in between it was, I agree with you, is a little slow to take off because they were the COVID periods, and then post-COVID it has started to pick up, and now it's on a much firmer footing.
Mr. Puri, it was a pleasure talking to you today. Thank you for joining us on NDTV Profit. That was Sanjiv Puri, who is the chairman of ITC and president of Confederation of Indian Industries, discussing the recommendations that he has presented to the finance minister with respect to the forthcoming budget. Thank you for watching.